An old man on the coast of California can be seen talking about the life of Bobby Z, the man who used to be a marijuana dealer and trafficker. Next, we are taken to a prison, where a man named Tim Kearney is being held for the deadly crimes that he has committed. We see a gangster named Mad Dog, who has many people on his payroll, and is often seen bullying Tim. Tim is sick of it, and puts an end to the man, slitting his throat using a license plate. He is now in the eyes of the prison officials, making a name for himself by killing a gangster. He now wants to get out of prison, so he goes to meet a federal agent named Tad Gruzza, who is good at getting people out of prison, and he tells Tim to pose as a famous drug lord named Bobby Z, if he wants to get out of prison. Tad makes it abundantly clear to him that he is not going to be able to survive in prison, because Maddox's people are not going to leave him, so it is not safe for him anymore. Tim tells him that he is not scared of anyone, and that he could very much deal with his henchmen. However, Tad still advises him to get out of prison as soon as possible. Tim now starts thinking about the offer made to him by Tad. We then see a federal agent named Moreno, on a ship sailing in the ocean. The man is being held captive by another crime lord known as Don Huertero. Tad reveals that he is willing to let go of Moreno only if Bobby Z is handed over to him. Tad tells Tim that the real Bobby Z is actually dead, but they do not know that. They now have to find someone who looks just like Bobby Z. After much contemplation, Tim accepts the offer, and they then give him a makeover to make him look even more like Bobby Z. They give him a set of instructions and some important things about Bobby Z as well. They give him photos of two women who are close to Bobby Z. Their names are Elizabeth and Olivia. Tad tells him that he should know about these women. When everything is prepared, Tim is taken to the border, as they are ready to make the exchange. They give Tim the contact of another man named Monk, who happened to be a close friend of Bobby Z. This is where we learn that Tad is not sincere to Tim. He actually wants him dead, and at the cost of his death, he wants Moreno back. When they try to shoot Tim, he manages to dodge the bullet just in time, and the bullet meant to hit him ends up hitting one of Don's men. Tad and his team then get into a shootout with Don's men. As the shootout goes on, Tim manages to hide in the bushes. He is however spotted by Don's men, who take him away at gunpoint. We then see Tim in a nice house, where he is treated very nicely and kindly by everyone. This is when a servant comes to him and tells him that a party is going on at the pool, and he also gives him a new suit to wear. He makes his way to the pool where he sees Elizabeth. Just as he sits there, a man comes to him and tells him that Brian wants to see him right away. We then learn that Brian is the right hand of Don, who oversees the man's business. Brian tells him that Don wanted to see Tim himself, but he was busy, so he's gonna have to wait. That night, when Elizabeth comes to his room, he learns from her that the boy she was with earlier that day is actually Bobby Z's son. They then sleep together, and this is when Tim learns that Don is going to kill Bobby Z after the exchange has been made. The woman, however, does not tell him why he wants him dead. Tim then right away makes a plan to escape, as if he is still there by the time Don arrives, they are going to kill him. However, when he is just about to get out of there, Bobby Z's son, Kit spots him and asks him to take him away with him as well. Tim feels bad for the boy and tells him to come along. They manage to get a horse and get out of there. It however does not turn out to be a walk in the park, as Brian learns of his escape right away, and tells his men to bring him back. Kit is nothing more than a liability for Tim, and he drops him in the bushes when he realizes that he is not a fighter. He tells the bot to keep hiding, and not get out while he himself takes care of the men chasing him. Tim is an ex-Marine, so he happens to be a good fighter and a strategist. He beats the shit out of the men following him, and knocks them down. He then gets Kit back with him and runs away. They are now on a motorbike, and as they drive on a secluded road, the bike runs out of fuel. They now have no choice but to walk on. Elsewhere, Brian whips Elizabeth as punishment for telling him about their plan. Brian sends a plane to catch Tim, and he gives this job to one of his best men, Johnson. They also send many men to hunt them down on horses. They get to the location where Tim and Kit are, and the two hide behind the rocks when they spot many horses approaching. This is when the fight begins. Tim again beats the shit out of all the men and knocks them down. Just as he and the boy are about to escape from their grasp, Johnson shows up and shoots him in the leg. Dawn in the meantime arrives and tortures Brian for letting Bobby Z slip out of their grasp. Brian tells the Dawn that the man managed to run away when Elizabeth told him about their plan. Dawn then says that he needs Bobby Z alive. He also orders his men to deal with Brian. The next day, Tad and his men find his dead body. Tad also learns that Tim is now out of their grasp, so he calls a man named Boom Boom and lets him know that Tim is on the run, and he is going to make his way to Mexico. Tad then tells him to hunt down Tim at any cost, and he asks him to use Maddox's men to do the job. He also tells him that Mad Dog is dead, and he was killed by the same man they are going to capture. Tim in the meantime buys a car from a woman who owns the motel they have found. He then gets some food and other supplies Tim needs on their run. Tim then makes a phone call to Monk and tells him to ready the cash and the passport for him. He calls Monk because he is of course still pretending to be Bobby Z. Monk tells Tim to see him at his house in the morning. Elsewhere, Johnson makes his way to the motel they stayed in and asks the woman about Kit and Tim. Johnson then enters the room Tim stayed in, and we also see Boom Boom there. When Tim and Kit get back to the motel, Tim learns that someone is waiting for them inside the room, and just as Kit is about to open the room, he picks him up and runs away from the room, as the room explodes and Johnson is killed. Just as they are about to get out of there, Boom Boom shows up and starts shooting at them. Tim manages to get hold of the man, and takes his bike from him as well. Elizabeth is with Monk, who seems to be happy about the fact that Bobby Z is on the way back home. He says that he wants to do something special for him as a welcome home. The next day, Monk holds a party when Tim gets to his place, and he again sees Elizabeth, who tells him that she knew from the very get-go that he was not Bobby Z. Tim then tells her the truth about who he is, and in the meantime, Tad gets there with his men. Elizabeth then tells him that Monk is already aware of the truth, and he very well knows that Tim is not Bobby Z. She also tells him that she has convinced Monk to help him escape the people who want to kill him. They then make their way to the port, where Monk is already waiting for him. He has the passport and the cash. However, Dawn gets there before they can run away, and takes Kit hostage. This is when Dawn reveals that he has always wanted to kill Bobby Z, because he, along with Monk, once tricked him, and he went through a great loss. We then learn that Olivia was actually Dawn's daughter, and she killed herself after she was dumped by Bobby Z. Dawn now wants his revenge, and he has more than one reason to kill Bobby Z. He then says that if Tim does not just give himself over to Dawn, he is going to kill Kit. Tim however tells him that he is going to kill them all if they dared to touch the boy. Kit then hits Dawn in the nuts, and causes enough distraction for Elizabeth and Tim to buy enough time to break themselves free from the shackles of Dawn's men. Elsewhere, Tad visits the place where the real Bobby Z used to live. This is when we learn that the real Bobby Z is still alive. We learn that Bobby Z is the main brain behind all the plan. He is well aware of the fact that Dawn is not going to spare him, until he is sure that Bobby Z is dead, so they have staged all this drama where they have a fake Bobby Z, and they want him dead. The plan however has gone south, because Tim has managed to survive. Tim, after dealing with Dawn and his men, makes his way to the port with Kit and Elizabeth. He thanks Monk for all he has done for him, and tells him that he can leave now. He even throws his gun into the sea, thinking he is going to board the ship now, so he does not need it anymore. It does not turn out to be a good idea. Because Boom Boom shows up with his men, he tries to get out of there, but finds himself surrounded by Boom Boom, and of course Maddox's men, the man he himself killed. The real Bobby Z arrives, and Tim tells everyone that he himself is the real one, and says that the other one is Tim. Kid arrives and he calls Tim's father, which makes everyone think that Tim is the real Bobby Z. Maddox's men and Boom Boom then open fire on Tad and the real Bobby Z, and they die. Kid, Elizabeth, and Tim leave together.
If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. You should watch the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more video like this.